The strange how quiet a hospital room can be after they open your body. You'd think you'd feel grateful for surviving the blade, for waking up. But I didn't feel grateful. I felt suspended, displaced, like I had come back to a world that no longer had a place for me. The lights above my head were too white, too still. The monitor next to me beeped like a metronome measuring the pace of my disillusionment. I wasn't fully awake. I was half dreaming when the door opened. Not gently, not cautiously, but like someone kicking through the last rotten plank of a condemned house. Shayla stepped in with her daughters flanking her like some cruel procession. She didn't bring flowers. No card. No hand to hold. No soft words to ease me through the pain meds and the fact that my abdomen felt like it had been carved with a dull knife. No, she brought an envelope. Thick, yellow, legal. My vision blurred a little as she came into focus. Something about the way she stood, it was wrong. There was no pause in her step. No tenderness. Just calculation. A woman here on business, not love. She didn't even look at the 4-line in my arm. She looked at the tray table. Then she tossed the envelope on top of it, like a waitress slapping down a check. I need a better man, she said. Not someone so limited. Limited, like I was a broken appliance that had failed warranty. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. There was a pressure in my throat. Not emotion, not even surprise, just weight. Years of it. Dead weight I'd carried for too long. Haley, her oldest, had the gall to smile. We already found your replacement. There was a flicker of cruelty in her voice, a triumph I'd heard before. She used to say things like that when her mother wasn't around, when she wanted to see if she could twist the knife just a little deeper. And Shayla never stopped her. They waited, expecting me to groan, to fight, to plead like a wounded man desperate to cling to what little he had left. But I didn't. I reached for the pen. It was tucked into the nursing chart hanging at the edge of the bed. My fingers trembled. Not from fear, but from the anesthesia still bleeding out of my system. I picked up the pen and signed the papers. Name, date, initials. I didn't even read them. That was the part that confused them. They watched me as if I'd missed my cue, as if I were supposed to sob or scream or beg. They weren't expecting silence. They weren't expecting peace. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have imagined, was that this wasn't a surrender. It was an exit. Planned, clean, deliberate exit. Because long before the knife cut into me in that operating room, I'd already cut myself loose. Weeks earlier, I'd started the process. Quietly, patiently. I had moved our savings from joint to separate. I had contacted the bank, the accountant, the financial planner. Everything I had built, every account I had maintained, every bill I had paid without question. It was all quietly withdrawn. You see, I'd been covering everything. That house in Chicago with its tall ceilings and peeling paint? Mine. The insurance premiums they never bothered to read? Mine. The mortgage, the home security, the heating in winter? Mine. The Wi-Fi Haley used to stream her podcasts, the skincare subscription her sister ordered every month, the college tuition that showed up in fat envelopes, me. Every penny, every cent. Not a thank you, not even recognition, just assumption. Entitlement dressed as expectation. But I'd seen the writing on the wall for years. Shayla's warmth had turned mechanical. Haley's sneer had grown permanent. Even her younger sister, barely 20, had started calling me, that guy, when she thought I couldn't hear. So I made sure, long before I went under anesthesia, that they wouldn't find the man they thought they could destroy. I left them the shell. I kept the spine. That envelope Shayla dropped so triumphantly? It was just a formality. She thought she was ending something. She didn't realize it had already ended without her. I signed not because I was broken. I signed because I was done. They left without a word once I handed the pages back. Haley gave me one final look, the kind girls like her give to waiters they don't tip. Then they walked out of the room, heels clicking like a drumline at a funeral. And I lay there in silence. A silence that tasted like freedom. The nurse came in not long after. "You okay, sir?" she asked, looking at the envelope now resting neatly on the tray. I nodded. Never better. And it was true. My body might have been wrecked. My side cut open, muscles stitched shut. But something deeper, something heavier had been removed too. Parasite. That night I sent one email. Just one. To Shayla. No subject. No preamble. Just 3 words. Check your accounts. By the time they did, it was too late. Everything was closed. Mortgage account? Zeroed. Insurance? Cancelled. Utility autopays? Stopped. Haley's tuition? Unfunded. Her sister's skincare? Declined. Every pipeline of generosity they had bathed in for years dry. The foundation of their lifestyle wasn't love. It wasn't blood. It was me. And now I was gone. Not physically. Not yet. But financially. Spiritually. Morally. Gone. What they never understood is that love has an economy. It's not built on money, but on respect. On effort. On presence. I gave them all 3. For years. I gave them my name, my credit, my time, my labor. I gave them silence when they mocked me. I gave them help when they never asked. I gave Shayla loyalty when she deserved distance. And in return, you're limited. Limited. No, I was generous. I was patient. I was building a world for people who thought I owed it to them. But now they could see what my absence really cost. They thought I was just a stepfather. They forgot the step was the part holding everything else up. I didn't go back to Chicago. Not after the discharge. Not after the signatures or the silence that followed. The doctors gave me a pamphlet on wound care and a plastic bottle of pills that rattled like bones. They told me to rest, to avoid stress, to heal. But the truth is, I had already started healing, just not in the way they meant. I didn't tell Shayla I was leaving. I didn't give her a forwarding address. I let her believe, for one last moment, that maybe I'd come crawling back. That the man she had humiliated in front of her daughters would still feel tethered to the ruins of a life built on his back. She was wrong. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment in Des Moines. Cheap, clean, anonymous. The kind of place where no one asked questions and the neighbors didn't introduce themselves. The walls were thin. The plumbing was loud. But for the first time in years, every sound in that space belonged to me. I slept on a mattress on the floor, ate canned soup, watched sunlight crawl across the cracked blinds and didn't flinch when it hit my face. And before I left Chicago, I made sure to leave them something. An envelope. I slid it under the door of the house I used to pay for. Inside, 1 sheet of paper, printed in black and white. No emotion, no farewell, just facts. Account closures, utility cutoffs, canceled credit lines, college fund withdrawal. No more gas card. No more food delivery subscriptions. No more Spotify Premium. No more skincare kits showing up like clockwork on the doorstep. And 1 note, written in my own hand. You wanted better. Now you have nothing. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. 3 days later, the phone started ringing. First, it was just Shayla. 1 missed call. Then another. Then 5. I didn't answer. I watched the voicemails accumulate like dead leaves. Her voice cracked on the first message. Angry on the second. Desperate by the 4th. By the time Haley called, the panic had set in. Why is my card being declined? Where's the Wi-Fi? My classes. My financial aid. What the hell did you do? I sat on the floor with the phone in my hand. Listening. Not smiling. Not enjoying it. Just listening. The collapse was quiet at first. Like a house losing power 1 room at a time. First the electricity. Then the internet. Then the mortgage payment that never cleared. Then the silence that followed when the bank stopped recognizing their last name. I had been the system, the infrastructure, the net they never looked down at because it had always been there. Now it was gone. The next week, Shayla sent a message. You can't do this to us. That word, us, used to mean family, used to mean shared burdens, shared effort, shared home. But now it meant mouths without hands. Entitlement without memory. I didn't reply. I just sat in my new living room. Bare walls, no pictures, no photos of girls who once called me not enough. And let her words echo back into the void. You can't do this to us. But I already had. And it wasn't revenge. That's the part no one ever understands. It was release. Because when you stop feeding the wolves, they don't become tame. They become loud. They howl. Haley called next. No apology. No grace. You're being immature, she said. You're abandoning your responsibilities. I didn't respond, so she followed up. You're the adult. Act like it. That one almost made me laugh. The adult. I was the adult when I paid the tuition on time every time. I was the adult when I kept the gas tank full, the fridge stocked, the Netflix subscription running so they could fall asleep to sitcoms while I lay awake wondering how to cover the next bill. I was the adult when I swallowed disrespect like medicine, day after day, year after year. But now, suddenly, adulthood meant something else. It meant obedience. It meant silent funding. It meant standing still while they took turns carving off slices of me. So I kept listening, quiet, detached, watching from the outside as the machine ground to a halt. The house began to fail. I heard from the landlord first, not directly, but through an email forwarded by a financial officer I used to work with. Late rent, missed HOA dues. Something about water damage in the upstairs bathroom left unrepaired. I didn't forward it to Shayla. Let her find out on her own, the way I used to find out her daughters had spent $500 on shoes and tried to hide the receipts under the couch cushions. A few days later, the younger one, what was her name again? The one who used to send me Instagram links to makeup kits and call me Mike, like I was her doorman, sent me a message. Can you please send the login for the Amazon account? My skincare shipment didn't arrive. I stared at that message for a long time. That was all I had ever been to them. A login, a card number, a shipment. I didn't reply. Shayla messaged again. The lights are out. We had to use candles last night. What are you trying to prove? I almost responded that candles were romantic. That she could light them during dinner with the new man she traded me for. That she could ask him to fund Haley's college, fix the car, pay the heating bill in January when the Chicago wind comes down off the lake like a blade. But I didn't say anything. My silence was the response. The only one that mattered. Another few days passed. Then a week. The messages slowed. The calls stopped. I imagined them pacing through the darkened rooms, clutching their dead phones, watching the last drops of hot water disappear. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not victory. Not relief. Just stillness. There was no applause in this ending. No audience to cheer for the man who finally walked away. No vindication waiting in the wings. Just me, sitting in a folding chair in Des Moines, eating cold pasta, listening to the wind. And it was enough. Because sometimes the only way to teach someone the value of your presence is to take it away completely. The knock came on a Monday. 2 sharp raps, no hesitation. It wasn't the cautious rhythm of a neighbor or the fumbling hand of a delivery guy. This was official, practiced. I knew the sound the way a soldier knows a G*N being cocked. I'd been expecting it. I opened the door and found 2 officers standing on the other side. One older, with the wear of too many winters in his eyes. The other younger, still holding his badge like it was something shiny. They both wore the look. Not aggressive, not friendly. Just clinical. Michael Carson? The older one asked. Yes. He glanced down at his notepad. We received a request for a welfare check. I nodded slowly. From Shayla? A pause. We're not at liberty to disclose that. Of course not. But I knew. Who else would it be? She couldn't reach me. Couldn't manipulate me with silence or softness. Couldn't seduce her way past the firewall I had finally built. So she tried a new angle. She called the law. Painted me as unstable. Suicidal, probably. A man who had walked away from his family, from his responsibilities, from the roles they had caged him in. And in doing so, she told the world, he must be broken. Because that's what they always do. Isn't it? When a man withdraws, when he refuses to carry the load they keep piling on, he's not protecting his dignity. He's unraveling. He must be sick, dangerous, a threat to himself. I stepped aside. Come in. You'll find everything in order. They walked through the apartment slowly. It didn't take long. 1 room. No decorations. Just the smell of heat off the radiator and the quiet tick of a wall clock I bought for $6 at a pawn shop. The younger one asked, "Do you have any history of mental illness, sir?" "No," I said, "unless you count 16 years of being treated like a utility." He blinked. "I'm sorry. Never mind." I waved it off. "Do what you need to do." They asked a few more questions. Was I on any medication? Just post-op pank *lurs. Was I in contact with anyone? No one I missed. Did I feel like harming myself or others? I looked him straight in the eye. No. But if I did, the harm would already be done. That rattled him. The older cop gave me a long look, then nodded. "You're good. We'll file the report. Sorry to disturb you." I almost thanked him, but the truth is, I wasn't disturbed. I was vindicated, because Shayla had shown her hand. When her tricks failed, she reached for the system. She wanted to make me seem unstable, just so she could get her claws back into my accounts, my mind, my silence. She wanted to provoke me into being the villain so she could keep pretending she was the victim. I saw it for what it was. A final, desperate bid to regain control of a man who no longer belonged to her. That night, I called my lawyer. Calm woman named Eliza. The kind who never raises her voice because she's never had to. "I want a cease and desist filed," I told her. "She's we *p* nizing the police now." Eliza didn't ask for details. She didn't need to. "I'll take care of it," she said. "We'll also notify the court about potential harassment. If she tries again, we escalate." She ended the call with 2 words I hadn't heard in weeks. "Well done." And just like that, the line was fortified. Not with anger, not with threats, but with paper. Legal, binding, silent power. The kind they can't argue with in a voicemail. 2 days later, Haley messaged me. Not an apology. Not a reckoning. Just, "Can you help with rent?" I stared at the message for a full minute. Not a hey. Not a, "How are you feeling after the surgery we never visited you in the hospital for?" Not even a sorry. Just a request. Just another mouth asking for a handout from a man they had buried the second he stopped bleeding money. I replied with 3 words. "You're an adult." Then added a 4th. "Start acting like one." She didn't reply. Shayla reached out next. A long message this time. Carefully crafted. Passive-aggressive. Softened edges designed to make me forget the tray table, the papers, the insult that hung in the air like smoke. She said she didn't mean to hurt me, that she was under stress, that she acted out of fear, not malice. She wrote that we still had a foundation, that things could be different if I just came back and talked things through. What she meant was, I missed the money, I missed the convenience, the coverage, the man who handled things without asking, who didn't need thanks because he was too busy cleaning up the mess. She didn't miss me. She missed what I gave her. So I didn't respond. I let her message rot, unopened. Let her stare at the screen and feel the weight of a silence she could no longer control. That night, I slept deeper than I had in years. No whispers. No sighs from the other side of the bed. No sounds of drawers opening, of credit cards sliding out of wallets, of girls placing another order and saying nothing. Just stillness. The next morning, I made coffee and opened my laptop. I checked the old shared accounts out of habit. All of them inactive. No new deposits. No attempts to claw back access. Maybe they'd finally understood. Maybe the silence had spoken louder than all my years of providing ever did. But just as I closed the laptop, another message came in. This time from Shayla's sister. A woman I had spoken to maybe 3 times in my life. Always at weddings or funerals. She had never called me by name. Just him. Her message was a simple accusation. What kind of man abandons a family like this? I didn't answer, because the question wasn't honest. It was a *p*n. But if I had replied, I would have said, the kind who carried it alone for too long. The kind of man who paid for everything, forgave everything, stayed silent through everything. Until one day he realized that the only thing being built was a life where he didn't matter. And now I mattered to no one. So I would no longer pay. And when the police came to my door, I realized the truth. They weren't there for me. They were there for her. Because if I could be painted as unstable, broken, mentally unwell, then maybe, just maybe, she could keep the machine going. Keep the accounts accessible. Keep the pity and sympathy flowing long enough to make me look like the problem. But the only thing broken in that room was the lie. And now it lay in pieces at her feet. Let her explain that. I live in Omaha now. 2 hours from Des Moines. 8 from Chicago. A world away from them. My apartment is on the 3rd floor. No elevator. The steps creak and smell like dust and old paint. But I like it. It reminds me I still have legs. That no one is carrying me. I moved in with nothing but 2 duffel bags, a laptop, and 3 shirts that still fit after the weight loss from surgery. I didn't bring photographs. I didn't bring furniture. There was nothing from that house in Chicago I wanted to see again. I bought everything secondhand. Table, mattress, bookshelf, a cracked coffee mug from a thrift store that says #OneDad in faded blue paint. I drink from it every morning. Not because I believe it. Because it's the only one that tells the truth. They broke the man who earned that title. The job is remote. Mid-tier logistics firm. Boring work. Predictable hours. I log in at 8, log out by 4:30. No meetings. No deadlines that ruin weekends. Just numbers, shipments, spreadsheets. It's perfect. Sometimes I cook. Other times I don't eat until noon. There's no one to ask why. No one to comment on what's in the fridge or how long I've worn the same hoodie. The silence that used to gnaw at me now feels like insulation. There's peace in knowing no one is watching you run yourself into the ground. Because I did. For years. I was the scaffolding for a family built on a lie. That love could grow without roots. That respect could come without effort. That sacrifice would one day be enough. I see now that sacrifice without respect is just slavery in a nicer house. And the moment I stopped funding the illusion, the house collapsed. Shayla hasn't messaged in over 2 weeks. Last I heard, the mortgage defaulted. She moved in with her sister. The daughters scattered. Haley with a roommate in some overpriced downtown apartment. The younger one couch surfing after maxing out the last credit card I forgot to close. They never filed a lawsuit. There was nothing to sue for. Everything was mine and they knew it. I had receipts, contracts, records of every bill, every tuition payment, every cent funneled into their comfort. I had evidence not of love but of labor. They thought I was just another man with a wallet. They forgot that men like me keep ledgers. And I had balanced the books. One day, in the middle of February, Shayla left a voicemail. Her voice was different, slower, not soft, just empty. She said, "You didn't have to do it like this." And maybe she was right. Maybe there was a gentler way to disappear. But then again, when has silence ever been gentle? I let the message sit. Didn't delete it. Didn't save it either. Just left it floating in the digital purgatory where all the apologies too late to matter end up. The daughters never reached out again. The last thing I heard from Haley was a public post on social media. A paragraph dripping in curated sadness. She called it a reflection on loss. Said she was learning to live without support. Said she was growing stronger after abandonment. I didn't comment, but I read every reply. All her friends gushing about resilience, independence, how proud they were of her. Not one of them knew what I'd paid to get her through college. Not one of them had seen her sneer as she watched me wash dishes while she talked about how real men provide without asking for credit. They didn't know she had laughed the day her mother served me divorce papers. That's what haunts me more than anything. The laughter. It wasn't joy. It was certainty. Certainty that I'd keep paying even after the signatures dried. That I'd keep showing up, keep transferring funds, keep absorbing insult after insult because I didn't know how to stop. But I did. And when I vanished, they didn't just lose money. They lost the myth that someone would always be there, no matter how cruel they were. And me? I lost nothing. Because there was nothing real left to hold on to. Just ghosts in borrowed bedrooms, women who wore my last name like a badge when it benefited them, and discarded it the second a richer man came sniffing around. There's a bar near my apartment. Run down. dim. The kind of place where the jukebox still plays songs from before the recession. Sometimes I go there, order a drink, sit at the corner table and listen. Every now and then, I hear echoes of my old life in other men's stories. A guy complains about his stepson. He told me I'm not his real dad after I paid for his braces. Another says, she left me after I co-signed the student loans. And I nod, not to them, just to myself. Because I know how it ends. It ends the same way every time. A man gives, family takes, then calls him controlling when he stops giving. And when he leaves, they call it abandonment, never realizing he'd already been abandoned a long time ago. Not physically, emotionally, morally, minute by minute, cut by cut, cold shoulder by cold shoulder, until he gets up one day and walks out. Not because he's heartless, but because he finally heard them say what they'd been showing for years. You are replaceable. They never expect the man to believe it. But I did. And once I believed it, I became free. Do I think about them? Sometimes. Usually when it's quiet. Usually when I see something as simple as a cup left in the sink or a hoodie folded the way Haley used to fold hers. But the memory doesn't hurt. It just reminds me who I was, and who I refuse to be again. This is my life now. No applause. No family dinners. No birthdays spent in restaurants I couldn't afford. No watching someone else's daughters open gifts with my name on the receipt and their father's name in their mouth. Just me. And you know what? It's enough. Because every day I don't get called not enough is a better day than the best I ever had in that house. They wanted better? Let them find it. Let them see what the world gives when they're not being subsidized by the man they called irrelevant. Let them learn what real abandonment feels like. And maybe they'll remember the man who paid quietly for everything. But if they don't, that's fine too. Because I sleep now. I sleep deep. And I wake up to silence. Not the silence of contempt. The silence of peace. So now I ask you, whoever reads this, whoever finds yourself carrying a family that doesn't see you, was I wrong? Was I cruel to stop paying for my own humiliation? Was it abandonment or a boundary? Would you have stayed? Would you have kept giving? Or would you, like me, have finally stood up and said, no more? You tell me, because I lived it, and I survived.